pronouncing that right?
Moreno.
Marino. Okay.
Yeah, in the South, pretty much everyone says Moreno. So that's pretty much the way I grew up saying it, even though it's correctly pronounced like Moreno. But
All right. Sounds good, man. All right. So I think we're let's see, we'll verify. Awesome. So we are streaming. I'm gonna minimize this. Hopefully there's no feedback going on. But hello everybody. I'm here with Brent Moreno, and he is an AI enthusiast and has actually been following AI, ChatGPT, all that before most of us knew what it was. So I'm excited to have him on board today. We're going to go ahead and cover a variety of questions and topics, all the way from super beginner to a little more advanced stuff. So stick around; it'll be worth it. And with that said, Brent, appreciate you taking the time to hop on with us and take a little bit of a deep dive here. And with that being said, my man, I want to just give us a little background about yourself and what really sparked your interest in artificial intelligence.
yeah, I'll try to keep this as short as possible because when I have conversations with people, they're always like, "You just seem way too young to have done all these things," because I've lived multiple lives. But um, I left home at a very early age, went to go work in the music industry, found out that I could be touring and traveling and making way more money in the marketing side of things and be doing the same tours that I was doing in the music side. So I ended up working for Fortune 500 companies for around 10 years doing experiential marketing. So if you ever been to a major event, you saw Verizon or Coca-Cola or Anheuser-Busch there doing things. I was the guy that kind of moved those pieces around and managed those campaigns. And got tired of the road after a little bit of time. My wife was in law school, got into real estate investing on the side. That started paying more than I was making in the corporate world. So I decided that this was what I was going to work on full time and learn. Did that for several years and moved to Mississippi with my wife when she graduated law school. She opened a law practice, and I partnered with a friend of mine, and we built a wholesaling business and started doing live Q&As just like this every Wednesday. We built an audience just answering questions. Got into the education side of things and built seminars and courses and education and mentorships and things of that nature. And that was about around the time 2017, that was when I launched myself into my own personal business and got really interested in digital marketing. In 2014, I saw a video called Humans Need Not Apply. It's on YouTube. It's like 15 minutes long. I still suggest everyone go and watch it. It's a fantastic video of not only what's coming, but what's already here. Like I said, it was 2014. So it kind of scared the shit out of me a little bit because I was like, well, what does this mean for society? Was this, what happens when this actually does come to fruition? And they made it seem like it was coming a lot sooner than what we're seeing now. Uh, so I always pondered on it, and I shared that video with a lot of people for over the years. I mean, I've probably seen that video at least 150 or 200 times. I still go back and watch it. It's a great place to start and to get your brain to kind of really think about what's coming. And in 2017, obviously, was Attention is All You Need. That's a research paper that was released by Google. That's where we got the transformer. We're in the GPT. That's where that came from. That's really what changed a lot of things. In 2018, I saw Google Duplex, and that's when I started getting real serious because I was doing a lot of cold calling, and I had VAs in the Philippines, like most people do, or in Latin America that I was paying, not insanely large amounts of money, but after a good bit of time, you have five or six of those, it can add up. And I saw their announcement of uh, Google Duplex which was a voice assistant that was supposedly coming to their phones here, soon. They ended up scrapping it, never launched it, but it blew me away with possibilities. So I even got a text message from 2018 where I was like sharing it with Max Maxwell and a bunch of different other people. Where I was like, "This is like imagine a VA that like never gets tired, never goes to sleep, never calls in
Oh, that's
sick.
it. Yep.
That's going to have these conversations, and then it's fed data on every single aspect of that person's life. Because if you understand anything about data, like just in it's not on you. Like Facebook had over 5,500 data points on every single voting age American in like the 2012 election, whatever election cycle it was. And you start thinking about that, and it's like, man, this like these companies know more about you than you know about you. So if I have an AI agent that's calling you and knows how to sell you better than any possible human could ever sell you, and you would never know that it's not a human. Now, I started working on that project for a long time to build voice assistants. I wanted to bring that to market. The problem I kept running into for years and years and years was just latency. Um, Finding the right tools, it never sounded natural enough. There was too long of pauses. So eventually I ran out of time and money and couldn't really get it done. And then ChatGPT launched, actually before ChatGPT launched in 2020, GPT-3 was released. And I became super fascinated because I saw a few people who had access that were building out these demos. And I was one of the early adopters to what's now known as Jasper. It used to be called Conversion.ai. I
Mhm.
was like probably one of the first 100 customers that they had signed on. And I was using that to like rewrite blogs for my real estate business, and I was pretty fascinated with what it was capable of doing. But when I finally got to be able to put my hands on ChatGPT the day it launched, that's the day I pretty much said, I'm dropping everything. This is what I'm focusing on full time because I believe this is going to have 10x the impact of the internet in half the amount of time. So I started my newsletter within less than a month after ChatGPT release, simply just as a way to for me to stay up to date and informed. And if anyone wanted to follow along, they could. And since that time, there's been several opportunities that have come my way through just again sharing what I'm learning, and openly having conversations like this. So that's where I am today. I'm not a senior software engineer by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not a machine learning engineer. I'm just super fascinated by this technology and its capabilities, and I like to think that I have a grasp on what's coming because I've been thinking about that question since 2014, and my nose is buried in research, and then just try to formulate an opinion based on what I'm seeing on like how to prepare for it, and a lot of people seem to resonate with that.
I love it, man. Quite the extensive background you have. I'm glad you mentioned real estate because we do have a real estate question a little later on. Are you still involved in the real estate at all, or it's kind of taking a back seat and everything is just AI?
It's a backseat. I'll always buy real estate. But like I don't run a full-time operation to where I'm looking for listings or I'm looking for flips or I'm looking for wholesales. I so if something comes to me and it's a good deal, I'll pounce on it, but it's not my primary focus right now.
Okay, awesome. Well, just to kind of get a little bit more of a background again for maybe our less technical listeners and whatnot, AI we know stands for artificial intelligence. You have, LLMs and generative AI. Like, how would you kind of explain that in, basic terms?
So large language model is I mean, that's what ChatGPT is. That's what Google Gemini or Bard is. That's what Claude is. It's essentially a predictive text. If it's the simplest way to describe it is that it's trained on a corpus of information. So basically, like all the internet, it's taken that information and it's been trained and ran through millions and millions of times to where now it ranks a predictability on what that next word is probably going to be. So no different than when you're typing on your phone and it starts giving you your sentence. It's that just on a massive steroid with a lot of compute power behind it. And we're talking like a serious amount of compute power to the point where that's kind of the ugly side of AI, is that it actually is pretty terrible for the environment and the amount of water usage that it takes and the amount of electricity that it takes. In order for us to get to that point where we're reaching AGI at a massive level, we're going to probably have to come up with some better solutions.
Gotcha. So now, as far as AI is concerned, everyone sees that this is really moving at a very fast and rapid rate. I mean, you can see that the new tools that are being released almost daily. And I just saw you posted Gemini and whatnot. I've been using Claude Opus, which is a whole nother LLM, and I mean, the advancements are pretty amazing. What areas?
How you liking Claude? I haven't really I've 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 kind of toyed with it just
Yeah.
mostly for the context window, but how are you liking it so far?
I like it. I mean, granted, I don't have access, the my custom GPTs and all those additional features. But when I'm asking it for, like, let's say, help with as far as like emails, newsletters, social media, I feel like it actually talks a little bit more natural. I've
Yeah.
been ChatGPT long enough that I love it, but as we were talking before, we have to edit some things, right? It has a certain kind of sound to it, right? I don't want to say spammy, but in some regards it does. As far as Claude, I feel like it definitely sounds a little more natural. Also, I've done some side-by-side stuff. I was running into some issues with, I don't know if you came across the open interpreter with the O1 Lite, which you basically can talk natural language like this and have, your computer do certain things. So as I was going through the install and whatnot, I was using ChatGPT as my assistant to say, I'm running into some issues here. Claude surpassed ChatGPT, at least for the technical aspect, to helping me get that configured properly. Now, again, I haven't, tested it across the board, but in two areas it really did shine. And if I'm being honest, as much as I love ChatGPT, I'm slowly gravitating to Claude a little bit. But we'll see what happens because we just saw the article as far as Sam Altman and ChatGPT 5 getting released sooner than expected. So I'm sure they're not going to disappoint. It'll be exciting to see what happens there.
It's amazing. And to speak on that, like how fast things are moving. Um, like one of the really mo more incredible things is like that a lot of people don't really pay much attention to is companies like Mistral. It's a French company that built a LLM called Mixtral. Um, it's open source.
Mm-hmm.
It has already beat the benchmarks of ChatGPT 3.5. So it's like the free version of ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
It's beat that. You can download it and run it locally on your computer without internet access, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
advise everyone to do that in general, especially if you feel like there's ever going to be an end of times type scenario or where you just really need, access to information because
Yeah.
literally like you'll be able to just as long as you can get electricity and plug your computer into your hard drive, like you'll have an entire corpus of information to be able to ask questions and it's figure out how to solve a problem. It's amazing because like I even fled it when my wife had her gallbladder removed. I took the blood work and I just took the blood work and I typed it in one by one and described her symptoms, and it nailed it.
That's wild. It's funny you mentioned that. I have an old blood work results test, right? Saw a doctor and nothing was much mentioned much. I was like, it's probably not applicable, not on the same diet. It's been over 10 years, but let me just see what ChatGPT says. Uploaded it, and it gave me a pretty interesting report. I was more extensive than the doctor that I saw. So I was like, wow, it was maybe some things of concern, but we'll have to get an updated blood test. But yeah, and actually what's interesting is apparently I think it's ChatGPT 2. Somebody was able to put that, I guess, the whole thing within an Excel sheet or something to that. I didn't read the whole article on that, but just to show you how, I guess, condensed it could be, and something like you're saying, if you really needed access, if God forbid something happened or whatnot, that you can have some of these, easily accessible on most devices and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, the future is it's these models are going to live on the edge and they'll live on your phone. You won't need you won't need internet. You won't need any of that, but they'll just all be condensed as things get smaller and smaller and smaller and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
Right.
It's really the exponential like increase that I don't think most people are paying attention to is like we've surpassed Moore's law by a lot in the last couple of years. I don't know if you got the chance to watch the NVIDIA uh, keynote, but it was pretty
No,
fascinating.
no, I haven't. I'll have to. We'll post the link in the group. Um, I'd love to take a look. So yeah, what areas of business, finance, accounting, whatever it may be, do you think will be mostly impacted by AI?
I mean, I think you're already seeing it now. If you're in customer service or customer support, you better be figuring out a way to get out of that and get into something else, especially if you can learn to use some AI skills. Klarna, for example, they're like a pay now, pay later, or pay later type credit company out of Sweden, I want to say, or Switzerland, some European country. They essentially replaced 700 employees with a chatbot, and it's actually done better in performance than its human agents have. Uh,
Amazing.
and customer satisfaction has gone up. They've kept time. from the cut time from 11 minutes per conversation to like 2.5 minutes per conversation. So the customers are getting the information they need quicker. So
Hmm.
I think that in that situation, you're going to see a massive disruption. Um, Same with voice. I mean, there's already a lot of hotels that are moving to their intake for people calling to book reservations and things of that nature. There's already some instances where casinos and things, those companies are having AI handle like 70% of that workload. Granted, again, they're not using like the most latest up to date uh, zero latency voice assistants, but all of that stuff improved significantly. If you just watch where images went in a year, it went from like you know on Midjourney in July 2022, you got some disfigured, like it doesn't
Hmm.
even look like maybe I could use that, maybe I can't. Like, you had to really
Yep.
stick to like very simple prompts if you wanted to get some cool images or like find something that was like sci-fi or things of that nature to like really get anything good. But like people, it just wouldn't do very well. It's like now in
Amazing.
less than 2 years, it's just you can't tell the difference.
That's right.
Uh, everyone's still hung up on the whole like the fingers and things of that nature. I was like, the fingers have already been solved. Like it's
Correct.
done. Does it get it right 100% of the time? No. But do
Hmm.
humans get it right 100% of the time?
Hmm.
No.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's kind of the point, right? Everyone believes there's some kind of we're all some kind of special snowflake. There's no way a machine could ever replace me. Um, I happen to disagree with that. I think there's going to come a time and a place where the majority of us won't have jobs through no fault of our own, and we have to really think about what that means for our society. I mean, even if I went and listened to an interview by with Demis Hassabis, who's the CEO of DeepMind,
Hmm.
Google DeepMind, very brilliant dude. But like even he talks about like I don't think people understand the monumental of what we're building, where energy is free or cheap, and we rid the world of some of the worst diseases, and we basically have to come up with a new concept of what money even is, or what governance even is, or what does the world look like when our identities aren't tied to our careers.
Hmm.
Uh, and I think there could be a lot of positive of that, but just like how people bicker and moan about a senator saying we want to move to a 32-hour work week, being full time, it's like, wait, I don't know anyone that actually wants to work more. But everyone's bickering and moaning because it doesn't come from their side that they, introduce a 32-hour work week.
Hmm.
You still make the same money. That was the guarantee. You still make the same amount of money.
Right.
Just after 32 hours, you're working on overtime.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, going to what you mentioned about as far as like the customer service, Alex Harmozy talks about that. He says it'll get to a point where you'll say, is this AI? Meaning, like now we're talking to maybe someone that's not, if we're in the US and we want support, some people get turned off by overseas support or
Right.
automated. Now they're going to actually want it because they're going to know they're going to get the actual best service and quickest service possible. So that's a completely different shift, especially in that sector.
I
Uh,
mean, research has already shown, like even in cases of using it for like doctors, like writing their reports. People preferred the Chat GPT version over what the doctor's actual version was. Like
Amazing.
I think more and more people are comfortable with it, as long as they understand there's transparency there.
For sure.
But I don't think there's a world where, though, at the same time, I don't think there's a world where I don't believe that a computer or and matched with robotics cannot compete or cannot compete with a human counterpart.
Right.
I think it's going to be, definitely going to be the computer wins out 100% of the time. Where jobs are going to exist for people or for people who still want to work to earn extra income and that require that human empathy and that human touch
Right.
that you just can't get through a robot.
Right.
Uh, right. Those jobs I think will still exist, and I think those jobs will exist for people who just want to earn extra income.
Hmm.
Everybody else, I think we're all off doing we're pursuing passions and hobbies and
Hmm.
finding ways to make money around those, right? Say
Hmm.
I love fishing and I want to just make fishing videos and take people out to go snapper fishing or take people to go uh, salmon fishing or whatever, um, fly fishing. I can do that, right? You can make a living at it. There was a
Mm,
video by Alan Watts that inspired me years and years ago, called "What If Money Didn't Exist?" And he kind of goes into talking about, you know, people always ask me like, what should I do for a living? He's like, well, I asked them like, well, what do you enjoy doing? What could you see yourself doing?
mhm,
Well, like, I like riding horses. Like, well, why don't you become a horse trainer, an instructor? Like, get really, if you do it long enough, eventually you become a master of it. If you become a master of it, someone's willing to pay you to learn it, right?
mhm. Right.
I think all those things are very true. I just think that, as a society, we've been locked into this, you know, uh, agreement that, we have to go work 40 hours a week for 30 years of our lives, save enough money, and hopefully we retire. And that's just never been a system that I bought into. I've always just tried to do the things that I enjoy doing and make a living at it, whether it made, hundreds of thousands of dollars or if it made
Mm,
20,000. I just had to figure it out. Like, but as long as I was enjoying what I did, I never felt like I was trapped and I was doing something I hated and that was meaningless.
sure.
And that's just the way I've always lived my life.
But now I know why you're drawn to AI so much. Let AI do most of the work while I go fishing.
Yeah. To some
Well,
degree. I mean, I love learning. I'm the type of person who walks into a bookstore and I get anxiety because I think
okay.
about all the things I'll never have enough time to learn.
Yeah, that's wild. I'm more of a student now than I was when I was going to school. I mean, I read constantly. I'm listening to audiobooks consistently, and it's like I always make the joke, like, from short circuit, the more input. I'm like, I can't get enough. When you find something you really enjoy, I mean, it changes. I mean, when you were forced to study certain curriculums and whatnot, it was painful. Now I
Right,
can't get enough. And I
right.
love how, somebody can have like their life's work in one book that you could read in, let's say, a week. I mean, the amount of knowledge you could accumulate just from reading is it's pretty amazing.
And that's really what I love about AI in general, especially tools like ChatGPT, is the fact that I can get so much more information and fed to me way quicker than any other format.
Hmm.
Right? If I want to learn, no longer do I necessarily have to read the entire book. I
Right.
can upload the book and like talk to the book, like, and have it answer questions based on what I'm thinking.
Hmm.
That's a better way of learning for me, and it's going to be a better way of learning for a lot of people. And there's a huge debate going on whether or not students should be allowed to use ChatGPT and like it's cheating. And I was like, well, I remember in high school, like my algebra teacher being like, you won't always have a calculator in your pocket.
The TI
Uh,
82s or whatever. Yeah, right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I was like, yeah, I do have a calculator in my pocket. I'm not saying that we don't need to learn basics, right? I think there's a certain cause for foundations of everything,
Mhm.
or a certain reason why we should be learning the foundations of everything. But the students growing up today, like they're never not going to have access to that tool.
Mhm.
When Wikipedia came out, the schools were trying to ban it, saying that was cheating.
Right.
I figure out ways to use it as a teaching tool. And if it means you have to change the way you teach your curriculum, then you have to change the way you teach your curriculum. Like it can't be just, write an essay and turn it in anymore.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's write an essay and then give your opinion on it. Give a
Sure.
10-minute speech on like what your thoughts on this are. Right. So
Yeah.
now I'm not just, having ChatGPT writing it and I turn it in and I get a paper. I have to actually formulate a real opinion and read through what ChatGPT gave me
Mhm.
and make it make sense. I mean, there's all kinds of things. So I think it's going to be a huge boost to education as a whole,
Mhm.
versus a hindrance. And I think you saw a lot of schools try to ban it really quick. You saw a lot of schools trying to uh, say that the content that somebody uploaded was ChatGPT. They were trying to fail the students. There's a professor in Texas that did that because he asked ChatGPT if it was written by ChatGPT and it said yes. More than likely, I was like, that's not the way this works, bro. And I was
That's
like,
wild.
but
Yeah.
there's not enough accuracy to be able to tell whether or not it's everyone's like, well, AI content and SEO. We can talk about that. I was like, AI content and SEO is not going to work. It's
Mhm.
like, first off, you show me an AI detection tool. There's only one that I've seen that's even remotely close, but it's still not 100%. Um, that can detect 100% with accuracy that whether or not something was written with AI or not.
Sure.
Because I know if you know how to prompt correctly, it's not going to give you the same boilerplate type responses uh, as you would if you just asked it to write it.
Right.
But if you tell it how to write it and what tone and what personality and like what style and what grade level, you give it that input, you're going to have a um, totally different paper, a totally different article.
hmm I was always on the fence with that. I even wrote an article about it as far as like, should you use SEO in your website? And I was kind of on the fence, like, yes, it could definitely help. It'll give you consistency. But on the same token, we know, like, take for example, Amazon wasn't too happy when people were flooding ebooks with that were written in ChatGPT that people were writing in a prompt. And I get it because they get saturated with a bunch of bullshit, really. Likewise, Google may not take kind to that type of content. They may want, actual user generated content. So there might be some, when they do an update, some key triggers that sandbox your website. So I haven't utilized it personally. Again, that's kind of why I was on the fence. I feel like anything, and we talked about it. Go ahead, let it do the dirty work, 80% of it, then go ahead and make the edits to sound like you and whatnot. And I think you'd be potentially safe.
I mean, Google has been very clear is that their main concern is they don't want people they they hate the SEO community, like
Mhm.
like the people who game the system,
Right.
in the sense of like they've literally apparently according to one of my friends who's very into the SEO side of things, he was saying a lot of the people that were teaching kind of like this black hat techniques, they're not black hat, they're just they figure out the algorithms and they figure out what how to work around it without getting penalized.
Mhm.
But every single time you do that, Google catches on and they just start slapping people. So they started
Right.
like de-indexing a lot of those people's content and their sites. Whereas I think what they're primarily focused on is that is the content relevant to what people were searching for?
Right.
Whether it was AI generated or not shouldn't matter. And Google said it doesn't matter so long as it's relevant and it's not taking advantage of, you know, keyword stuffing and things that because
Mhm.
it'll pick up on those things.
Mhm.
So far, like I've been using this company called Speedy Brand,
Mhm.
actually backed by Google, and Y Combinator. They handle all the SEO for my wife's law firm. So literally, just it's pretty simple. If you've got a WordPress or a Webflow website or a Shopify site or things of that nature, it'll pull all your competitors. It'll pull your Google Analytics. It'll suggest topics. It'll write the blog articles. It writes them in sections. You can choose professional, friendly, informational,
Mhm.
different kinds of tones. You can give it links to other articles that are ranking, and it'll scan those as well. So it's like literally pulling in all this corpus of information and really getting a really solid article that will rank in Google. And so far, like starting with a brand new legal website
Mhm.
is, it takes a long time, and we're still seeing that. Like I'm still seeing that, but like every day that I'm putting out articles, I
Mhm.
go and check everything, and like, and the amount of like impressions and clicks are continue to increase.
I was gonna
Uh,
say, how long you been using it for?
so 3 months now.
Okay. Again,
So
you're seeing like a definite positive impact from this tool.
yes,
Awesome.
I mean we've already landed a like $6,000 client from our website that came through one of the blog articles.
Mhm.
Uh, and I know that wouldn't have happened had it not been for that tool. Like so yeah, we're starting to rank, but like it's really hard to rank in for certain like especially like personal injury and things of that nature because you have the Morgan and Morgans of the world that have
Mhm.
hundreds of thousands of dollars spent on just content
Yeah.
every year and have been for a long time. So over time, I think eventually we will start to rank um, a lot of those keywords a lot higher.
Mhm.
Uh, but for now, I mean, for what it's been able to do so far, if I just left it alone and maybe wrote 5 or 6 blogs here or there, instead of, every time I sit down, I write 25 blogs, and pump it to the site. And it even pulls in trending news
Sure.
that you can be used for your business. Um, it's fantastic. I think if you're not in the legal or real estate space, it's probably going to work a lot better and a lot faster for you because
Mhm.
those are probably the two most competitive uh, that I can think of when it
Mhm.
comes to SEO. But yeah, Speedy Brand, definitely go check that out. It's great company. They're a young startup. You can still talk to the co-founders. They take suggestions. I've had several calls with their co-founders, so really like those guys and what they've been able to do.
That's
I mean, you can
awesome.
certainly use ChatGPT and you can recreate those things, and that's one of the kind of reasons I got out of software to begin with. Um, it's because in the first GPT-3 demos I saw back in 2020, there's a company that never launched, and I think it was just all hype. But a company called Dbuild, and it was basically type in a prompt and it'll build, this website or the software or whatever. And like they were basically like demoing, like, hey, we can show you how to build Stripe with just a few prompts.
Right.
Well, this is freaking nuts, man. But that's what's coming.
Yeah.
The future is one of the things I always say is like the future is if you can describe it, you can create it.
Hmm.
That goes for software, it goes for music, it goes for movies. And what I feel like it's democratizing every single form of industry. So it's making it easier for more people to get into whatever their interests are. I call it like the garage band moment. Used to it would take, tens of thousands of dollars to go record an album. Then GarageBand came out, and if you had a microphone and a garage band, and you had like $500, you could literally record it in your garage and make it sound pretty decent,
Yeah.
enough to where you can get it streaming and people could find out who you are. That's what's happening across the board, across many industries, is that we're creating this world of abundance, and it's going to drive prices down on everything. So one of the thought processes in my head is $50,000 a year the new $150,000 a year? Because if you allow the free market to work, right, and I develop houses for 50% cheaper than my competition, that means I can sell houses for cheaper than they can that are built as just as good a quality, if not better. Does
Hmm.
that drive the price of houses down, right? Because
Hmm.
who's gonna buy a house from? The guy that's charging you 50% more, or the guy that's charging you 50% less?
Hmm.
Well, same quality, same outcome. I'm going with the cheaper option every single time. Same
Hmm.
goes for food supplies. If robots are handling all of that, like we drive costs down. So that means your money can go farther because the cost of goods go down.
Sure. Well, we covered a lot of stuff there. You actually answered the next question as far as, how do you think AI will impact the market in the upcoming years? And we pretty much agree, I guess it's almost all markets, right? And when that I actually come from a computer programming background, I always said, hey, if I was still doing computer programming, I would be embracing it, right? Trying
Yeah.
to
Oh,
leverage it. It's a perfect, right now, be a perfect assistant. However, I kind of agree with what Sam Altman says that like coding's going to disappear. I mean, you'll be able to just say Chat GPT or Claude create so and so, and you won't have to know any coding at all. Um,
correct.
you
It's
know,
just a language, right? It's all
yeah,
patterns.
yeah.
That's what there's new technology that's coming that's probably going to beat the transformer. But for now, the transformer is king.
Mm,
And what I try to tell people is like you have to just think about this. Everything is a pattern, right? Our entire universe, there's patterns to everything.
hmm.
Um, so everything is a pattern. That means it can be translated into a language. Some fascinating things that happen are they're taking fMRI data, right? Your brain scans, and they're showing people images of like a giraffe.
Hmm.
They notice that that pattern fires in your brain, and if it sees that pattern enough time, then it can also take it to the computer. The
Correct.
computer will write the word giraffe, or
As
will create
well.
an image of a giraffe. They'll show them a video. It will recreate that video or tell you what happened in that video based on what they saw. So it's basically reading your mind, right? Because
Yep.
it's all a pattern. Same way with Wi-Fi signals, right? They're using Wi-Fi signals in your home that create a pattern because they're all bouncing off of things.
Hmm.
So then they can recreate those radio waves, those
See where
signals,
people are, right?
to basically be able to see how many people are in your house,
Mm-hmm.
where they are, where they're sitting, what kind of furniture, like all that stuff, because
Hmm.
it's a pattern. They're working on translating animal languages because it's a pattern. Everything is a pattern, so everything can be translated. So as long as you can speak English, or it doesn't, or you as long as you can speak a language, and the computer can understand you, you therefore can create anything you want.
Hmm. Get you thinking what Elon Musk says. We're living in a simulation. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
there's more and more evidence that points that that's a possibility
Yeah,
than not.
yeah.
You look at what Midjourney, um, their latest announcement was that they want to create basically real 3D world simulation, like at the basically you just prompt it and boom, and you create entire 3D worlds with a single prompt
Hmm.
in seconds. Uh, that's kind of where things are headed. I mean, it's
Hmm.
almost like Ready Player One almost, but maybe with less equipment that you'll need.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that could be a whole a whole nother webinar.
I mean,
Uh,
sci-fi has a lot of if you watch any sci-fi movies, there's a lot of predictions in there that are probably on point.
yeah.
I don't think we're headed to a Terminator type situation.
You just took
I'm
the
not
words out
a
of my mouth.
I'm not a doomsday kind of scenario guy. I do think there's an opportunity for a lot of things to go wrong, but we have to get very far before we get to that point. I think we'll be okay there. But I do think there's some situations right now that we really need to address. I mean, deep fake porn, uh, misinformation. This election cycle is going to be absolutely wild.
Sure.
Because for some odd reason we can't just go ahead and say like, hey, it's illegal to make campaigns using AI.
Hmm.
Like, don't
Hmm.
don't be making deep fakes of opponents and having them say things that they didn't say. Like it make that a very stiff penalty. But
Yeah.
for some odd reason we can't pass it. We can think about banning TikTok real fast because God forbid China might have our data, which they already have, but you
Oh,
know,
yeah. We read for the same articles and whatnot. But it's funny about the Terminator stuff. I was telling my wife, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I don't think it's too far off. I'm like, because it's all programmed by us. So like, you'll have good actors and bad actors. I'm like, I think you'll have like bad robots fighting good robots. I'm like, but at any rate.
how do you stop a bad guy with AI? A good guy with AI.
Yeah, there you go. Wow. So, I mean, we covered a ton on that as far as, the AI impacting the job market in coming years, and you kind of touched base on like what skill sets, and you were kind of saying more of like the personal touch and whatnot. Any other professional skills like that you think would be valuable for people to develop?
Look, I mean, there's a lot of talk on like programmers being put out of business and that not being a job anymore. It's a very useful skill right now because those who can do it are getting to basically play on the cutting edge of what's coming. Because most of the stuff that I fool around with, like you have to be able to open up a terminal and install it and understand just a basic enough of what you're doing. And those people are going to be far ahead of everyone else just because you can access it, tinker with it, learn it, build it. Uh, but that doesn't mean that that's going to be a job forever. I think, understanding money and investing and buying assets is going to be crucial. If you I don't know what the world looks like. I don't see a point in time to where people are going to be forced to give up their assets. I hope that doesn't come because that's not what I aspire any country or any group of people to do. Um, it's really difficult to say exactly what you should focus on. I tell kids like or people with kids now, it's like if they're really interested in computers and technology, like get them into like the deep learning website and see how fast they can learn, like machine learning, and things of that nature. But I still struggle with even then, like, are we going to need machine learning engineers? Because
Hmm.
our brains just have a capacity to the point where like you can only be so good at something that a computer can easily think out process you 1,000 to 1.
For sure.
So I struggle to think of things other than like anything that can have a positive impact on humanity that
Yeah.
you enjoy.
Okay.
I
That makes
focus
sense.
on those things, and
Right.
that's ultimately like where I'm at is I I am in the situation to where a lot of people are starting to come to me and ask me for information, and I never really had the intention of putting a course out. But I want to use it as a way to get more people into my newsletter. Because if I can get more people into my newsletter, the more people I have there, the more money I can charge advertisers who want to reach my audiences and things of that nature. So it allows me to focus on the things that I really want to do, which is to have more of a voice, and to be kind of that random middle class guy that came out of nowhere that gets the seat at the table to really figure out what we do moving forward as a society. Because I'm a capitalist at heart, but I'm also not somebody who doesn't care about the rest of the world or the rest of society as a whole. I'm actually a capitalist who's comfortable paying taxes, as long as those taxes are benefiting us.
Mhm.
And I want to be able to live in a civilized and educated society. I want to be able to live in a country where the roads are taken care of and I got clean drinking water, and and I have service members that are protecting my house and my livelihood and my those things. I'm comfortable paying for all those things. I don't have a problem with that.
Mhm.
Uh, but I do have a problem with crony capitalism, and just figuring out and making sure that we don't allow all this power to go into the hands of the wrong people,
Of course.
uh, and let one group just control it all, which I happen to really like. I tend to believe Sam Altman and OpenAI are in the right place. I know a lot of people talk about, oh, they're closed AI. Elon always trolls them all the time. I
Mhm.
think Elon mostly is just a little bit butthurt that he didn't get all the attention because he wanted them to merge with Tesla,
I can
and
see
they
that.
weren't willing to do that. And
Mhm.
essentially, he took his ball and he went home,
Mhm.
um, and that's okay. And he's way behind on that race, and that to the point I don't think he'll ever catch up. I think he's got too many irons in the fire, and there's just no possible way. Um, but I do their approach is I think is a smart one because if you're a company and you need capital to continue researching because no one's going to pay for research that's not going to uh, give them some sort of return, and then once they do find some way to get to the point where they have AGI, then that's their model is to release it and work with every other company that's producing so that everyone has access to these models. But they had to raise money. And the only way you can raise money is you have some sort of return, or somebody's just like, I'm a billionaire and I want to burn through some cash and hopefully let's go build me something cool.
Mhm.
Uh, I happen to believe that their heart and their minds are in the right place. We'll see. Could be wrong. But I happen to believe that they will do what they say they're going to do.
You think
Uh,
that's a big reason why Elon Musk made Grok open source?
oh, it's 100% why he did it.
Yeah, kind of a
Yeah,
big
it's 100%.
yeah. That's what
Yeah,
I
yeah. I
think.
mean, it's 100% why he did it. I mean, he did it just to troll OpenAI because it wasn't. He never initially announced that it was going to be open source. He just
Mhm.
announced that he was creating it, and then he was charging a subscription for it. And um, it's really not that good of a model, and it's kind of more of like it tells more of what I call like boomer jokes than anything. So,
I had intentions of installing it when I have a new machine and whatnot. I haven't gotten around to that yet, but we'll see. I'm still curious. You got a question from Christian in the group, and he wanted to know what was the name of the offline Chat GPT alternative.
so it's Mistral, Mistral.
All right.
You can go to YouTube and to search download Mistral to my computer or download LLM to my computer. I think there's a company called LM Studio that makes it really, really, really simple. But like there's several videos. Matthew Berman is a good one to follow if you want to get like technical and like learn some of the cool stuff that's coming out and like how to install some of these programs. I follow him pretty regularly on YouTube. A lot of stuff on YouTube's just fluff. There's only like probably 5 or 6 people that I really pay attention to on social media
Hmm.
that are actually sharing good content. I'll be happy to make a list of those to try to name them all off the top of my head, but um, AI Explained, I think, is another one. I'd have to go to my YouTube and like actually figure out what David Shapiro is one. Those guys are always sharing some good information. Wes Roth is another one.
Yeah. So actually, we can kind of elaborate off that a little bit. Kind of ties in the next question was, ChatGPT is one of the most wide known LLMs. We mentioned a couple earlier, and they were saying, are there any others, and how are they different?
Yeah, I mean, ChatGPT is obviously, I mean, they were the first, and there's a lot to be said about being first to market. Um, the crazy thing is that Google sat on that technology since 2017 and never did anything with it. But that's typical Google. They like to build moats. But there's Bard, which is now Gemini, essentially. They just released Gemini 1.5 today, actually, or it's been released to some people for quite a while, but I think it's publicly available today. You can go to my Facebook page and there's a link, or just Google it. You can find it. It's supposedly really, really good. I haven't really dove into it. I've seen some really fascinating use cases, especially with the 1 million token context window.
Hmm.
Um, and again, that's kind of the future we're going to. And if you don't understand what I mean when I say 1 million token context window, that's just the amount of information you can put into a single prompt. A lot of times, the bigger the context window, it loses information. What Google did that I thought was fascinating is that it nailed the needle in the haystack test, which is, you put a little piece of information in the middle of a lot of information, and then you ask it to find that information for you or find something that's out of place or whatever. It had really, really, really good uh, reports on being able to solve that. So I'm not sure what kind of magic they're using over there, but they definitely figured that problem out. Um, One of the other fascinating things is this happened like 8 months ago, is Microsoft released a research paper of a 1 billion token context window. Um, I just, that's a lot of information.
Hmm.
That's kind of where we're heading, right? So at some point in time, you'll be able to take terabytes of data and just boom and ingest it and then have it.
Hmm.
And it's there for you to be able to call upon, ask it anything at all.
Hmm. So just to elaborate a little further, so when you're talking about the tokens, you're saying, when someone's typing in ChatGPT, and sometimes they'll say, "Oh, rate limit, you went through too many characters," and I
Right.
think it's 8,000 or something like that. Well, now when you're saying it's 1 minute, I mean, that's a lot of information that you could submit at one time.
Yeah, I mean, I forget how many books it is. Like, it's more than all the Harry Potter books.
You say all the Harry Potter books?
Yeah, well, it's more than that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, oh,
But
Christian.
yeah, I mean, so like Claude, we talked just to make sure I answer the question. We have Claude, we have Gemini, which is Google, you have, ChatGPT. Those are your three big ones. You have Llama, which is by Meta, it's open source. You have the Mistral, which is another one that's open source. There's now essentially hundreds and hundreds of models.
Mhm.
Uh, Most of them are smaller, but your big three are going to be Claude, Gemini, and ChatGPT. Those are your three biggest. Those are the people that are really pushing the envelope.
Mhm. And as we mentioned before, I'm slowly kind of veering towards Claude a little bit, but I haven't abandoned ChatGPT. It's too useful.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I just I go over to Claude occasionally when I've got something really long contextually that I need to process, but I have a hard time getting off of ChatGPT just because it's what I've become used to and I'm
Yeah,
comfortable with. But I
100%.
will agree, like a lot of times reading what it produces, it does seem more personal.
Okay.
Uh, it does have more of a personal like tone to it.
Right. Okay. What do you think are the most significant challenges or barriers to widespread AI adoption in various industries?
Repeat that again.
What do you think are the most significant challenges or barriers to widespread AI adoption in various industries?
Biggest challenges.
I think
There.
intimidation, right? Intimidation, and by some people who are really not necessarily technical, is probably a big one.
Well, that's going to be, yeah, I mean, that's going to be a barrier of entry for a lot of people. Like they're just, they don't know what they don't know, and they're scared they're going to make a mistake. And it's very easy to. I mean, even Bloomberg, I just read an article where they spent millions of dollars training their own financial model based on all of their information, right? All of their corporate information.
Hmm.
It's like we're going to create the ultimate financial model based off everything we've ever done at Bloomberg, and ChatGPT 4 beats it still. They spent millions of dollars developing this thing, and it's still not as good as ChatGPT 4.
Amazing. It's
So
interesting. They said Claude Opus though did outperform on their benchmarks,
yeah, I know how those go.
ChatGPT.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, surely, yeah. I mean, I don't doubt that at all. And I think Gemini is probably just as good, or if not better than ChatGPT 4 is now as well.
Mhm,
Uh, I don't have any doubt about that. I just I know how long. I mean, ChatGPT 4 has now been out for a year. I think it came out, well, almost a year. I think it was like March 30th of last year.
mhm.
That's when they released it. So, yeah, I mean, it took everyone a year to get to the point to where they're now officially beating them. And we know ChatGPT 5 is right around the corner. We've seen what they've been doing with Sora, which is absolutely, I mean, I think that took the entire world by storm because I mean, literally, Gemini announced, or Google announced Gemini 1.5 and a million context windows, and they had this fascinating demo video, um, which they've been ragged on so many times because they have so many fiascos of, they put a video out that's not 100% true. It's like sped up and it's
Correct.
edited,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's capable of doing that, but you manipulated the hell out of it.
Uh-huh. They lost
So I
credibility.
mean, they've been caught with their hands in the cookie jar too many times, as trying to manipulate people. So people
Mhm.
were kind of whatever. But Gemini was a huge increase. But then that very same day, like just out of nowhere, OpenAI just dropped Sora, which nobody even knew they were even working on a video model. Um, I mean, obviously, it seemed to make sense. I think they're. I wanted to ask if they were ever going to work on a music model, but like Sora's just absolutely mind blowing to the point that Tyler Perry canceled an $800 million studio expansion because he saw the videos that Sora was producing. He was like,
So, yep.
"What's what's the point?"
For sure. Yeah, and they're
Uh,
actually taking, I think, Sora to Hollywood. I think they're pitching it to Hollywood.
Yeah, I just read that yesterday or the day. I forget when it was, but yeah, they're pitching it to studios. And again, everyone's all up in arms about, oh, my job. The voice actors are like, my job, my job, my job. I was like, well, there used to be candle makers, right?
Mhm,
The horses used to do the jobs of automobiles. Like, but the only difference with this technology versus every other revolution that we've ever had is that, unfortunately, I don't think it's going to get to the point where like, well, it's just going to create more jobs.
mhm.
I
Well,
don't think that's the case.
it's
I
also
think
moving a lot faster. I mean,
yeah,
right? It's just you can barely keep up with it.
right. And it doesn't take a massive amount of unemployment to cause a serious problem. And it doesn't matter where you're at, sit on the economic scale of things, whether you're a multi-billionaire or you're living in poverty. If there's not enough jobs for people to earn that money, that means there's not enough people to lend money to. And if you can't lend money and people can't afford the assets that you own to pay for the lifestyle that you have, well, guess what? We're all in the soup together. So we got to figure out what this looks like moving forward. Um, and that's kind of my goal and my mission is to try to spread that message as much as possible and be that voice of like how do we create a soft landing, because I think there's three ways that all this go that could all go. We could create killer robots and Terminator and we're all going to die. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that's very unlikely.
Mhm,
uh, we could figure out how to create the utopia and all live in an amazing society that has a world of abundance. I think we could get there, but it's not very likely that it's going to happen like right out the gate. Uh, or we're going to suffer miserably for quite a while until we figure out, you know, how to put all the pieces in place. And a lot of people are going to hurt. People are going to lose things. There's probably going to be some uprisings. That's probably more likely where we're going to be. So I'd rather try to lean more to how do we get to the utopia side of things,
sure.
less to like how do we keep people from suffering and causing uprising because there's going to be too many haves and have-nots.
Right. Well, interesting perspective. We could go down a lot of rabbit holes in that one. Um, a little bit of a technical question regarding Chat GPT. What is the most overlooked and powerful feature or features of Chat GPT that most people are not using?
Creating custom GPTs if you have the subscription, like for your business, not necessarily to release, but
Mhm,
like taking it and uploading your information, and like creating. I like to basically like create what I call agents, and I think that's kind of the future of things. agents are like just view them as employees. So
Mm-hmm.
create GPTs that are like if you're on a business, create a GPT that is your chief marketing officer. Create a GPT that is your chief technical officer.
Mm-hmm.
Create a GPT like basically you can create your entire company structure by giving them roles and responsibilities. And that's where agency is really kind of coming into play now. And I think entire businesses will be run because essentially that's all it is, right? Like you're a bot. Here's your role. Here's your responsibility. Here's all the information you need to know about my business. All right, you're the CEO. You're the CTO. You're the CFO. You all communicating with each other, and it's just going to be all of your agents communicating with each other and running your business. So getting used to learning how to build these GPTs and giving them roles and then going and using them in your business will literally be the best thing you could possibly do because you can anytime you have a question, go and ask your CMO if it's a marketing question. Anytime you have a technical question, go ask your CTO. Upload your documents for your business. I think that like that's probably the most underutilized because everyone's always looking for like some kind of like tool or shortcut that they can get to. It's like no, you still need to like have those conversations. You
Sure.
still need to be able to ask questions and still be able to have find room to learn and grow and try some different things. And ChatGPT is fascinating for that.
Mm-hmm.
Idea generation in general is just, I use it for brainstorming all the time. As a matter of fact, like when I'm working on a client project and trying to brainstorm some unique ways to incorporate AI into their business, this may sound funny, but like one of the clients is a charcoal company. Okay, we have to get really creative. I can't go into details because I have an NDA,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, I spent probably 3 hours coming up with a prompt just going through some of the marketing decks, some of the things that they gave me, just literally taking the time to write out my context, my goal, and requirements that I needed to like satisfy the client.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what it can spit out was pretty fascinating,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really good stuff. And I went back to the client with them, and they're like, "Holy shit, like this is good." And I was like, "I just used ChatGPT."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, the custom GPTs are something that I've utilized for a while now. I mean, I have tons of them, and just to kind of elaborate, I've covered this in the group, but the custom GPTs are essentially taking, when you prompt like, "Hey, I want you to take on this persona, this role," you're basically creating a custom GPT that you don't have to continuously put that prompt each time. So if you're going to say, I want you to act like a social media marketing expert, that's the custom GPT. And then you could just talk with it almost in shorthand, I guess you could say, instead of prompting it each time,
Yeah.
each window, running into the issues like we said previously, as far as like it may forget and all that stuff.
And
What's
if your prompt already includes information about your business, so it has context, right?
Mhm,
Which it creates a great prompt. Like you got to have context. It has the more good information in, good information out, bad information in, bad information out.
of course.
So the more context you can give your GPT or anytime you're prompting, the better results you're gonna get. You have to talk to it like I tell people to talk to ChatGPT or any other system like it's a freelancer that
Mhm,
knows nothing about your business, right? So imagine you're going to have a logo designed. Well, what kind of logo do you want? If you ever hired anybody on Fiverr, there's always like a list of questions that you have to answer anytime you have a job that you have requirements, right? That's the same way you have to talk to the computer. You have to be very detailed
mhm,
about every little thing that you like, talk to it like it's five and explain exactly what it is that you want it to do and
mhm,
how you want it to come out and it'll do it and it'll follow it to perfect instruction. But it's
mhm,
only going to follow the instructions that you give it to the amount of the level of detail that you give it. Otherwise, you're going to give it room to run,
mhm.
and it may come up with something that's totally way off base.
Yeah. So what's interesting is I've actually had some better results on like just using regular chat GPT than really trying to customize the hell out of it of a custom GPT.
Yeah,
You got to actually play with it and kind of and do comparisons. But the other interesting thing is where the custom GPTs actually really shine is the actions aspect. And now I haven't delved into that. It's on my to-do list, but that I believe enables you to take it out of essentially the chat GPT environment. So everything is done through let's just say the web interface, right through the screen there. Well, what if I wanted to interact with and like through my website or another application? That's how you could accomplish through the actions feature in that. So that's on my
Yeah.
to-do list to dive into. I don't know if you've delved into that at all.
I have not dove into that one yet as well. I think that's that one again. There are some companies that are doing some pretty awesome stuff with it. It's just not anything that I've toyed with yet. But yeah, you're right. That does seem like it would have a lot of use cases.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, because you had the limitations, right? Like if I was doing, it's called Nourish AI, where it was like, okay, create a custom meal plan for me. And, I was able to do it through the website, but well, what if I want to take that to the next level? So anyway, we'll dive into that further. We'll update in the group. Um, the next one has to do with as far as, again, most people using AI are familiar with text to image, newsletters, blogs, emails, assistance with writing, and even social media. That's what I use it a lot with. But how can they utilize it beyond those types of use cases?
I mean, it would really that's one of those things like I'd have to have a conversation of what exactly problem are you trying to solve in your business?
Mhm.
Uh, I don't think that's something I can really answer without having more information. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
I mean, to be honest with you, I utilize it almost for everything. It's become my personal assistant, not just for business, literally everything. I was in New York City in January, and I don't know shit about the subway system. I should know for how often I've been there in the past, but I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, you know what? Got ChatGPT on my phone. I'm like, going here, I'm here. What do I do? And it's like, take the E to this, to that. But then I was like, wow, that was pretty good. And it did the whole thing there and back. I was like, shit, that was pretty fascinating. So I
yeah,
look,
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, I think that's you brought up a very, very good point, and I've done that several times as well. To where like you ever get that moment in your head where you're like, shit, I don't know how to do that. Like, what do I like? What? How do I do that? Now I'm like every time I have that thought, I go, let me just
yeah,
ask ChatGPT.
I was just gonna say that. It's
Uh,
kind of funny how like even now, like I find myself using ChatGPT maybe more than Google, but the old habits may come back in. All right, I'm researching and listening on Google. I'm like, why don't I just ask ChatGPT for this? And it's like, I think it's just getting in the habit of doing so. And as I'm using this for just like personal stuff, business stuff, I'm constantly reminded of like, man, most people are probably not utilizing this. They could, and the amount that they technically, I guess, should to save them time, just because it's not in the routine and maybe they're just potentially intimidated, whatever. But I'm like blown every time I find myself getting out of the routine. I'm like, just ask ChatGPT, and nine times out of ten, it gives you the answer that you need, the quickest that you need, and pretty good results. So
People when people come to me with questions now, it's like a lot of times it's like I know how to answer it, but I'll just take the question over the chat GPT and like and I was like, all right, well, that's actually a little bit more detailed than mine, and I'll send that back to him and say, by the way, next time just ask chat GPT.
right. It's wild, man. I wonder
It's
how
just that
many. I wonder how many of these like services, right? Hold on, please, and they're typing chat
yeah.
and funneling it back over. Uh,
That or perplexity. I mean, I don't even use Google anymore. Other than, I mean, I use Google for like my Gmail, my Chrome, and like Google uh, Drive and things of that nature for docs. But like I don't for search engine and stuff like very, very, very rarely. And I have to be looking for something very specific, like a specific website that I'll go to Google. But like even my browser is set up when I go open a new tab when I just type in, it's using Perplexity.
okay. Yeah, I maybe dealt with it a little bit. I haven't used Perplexity too much again, just because I'm mostly ChatGPT and a little bit of Claude these days.
Yeah, so I use Perplexity on my phone. There's
Okay.
Perplexity. I've installed it. Just force yourself to use it because number one, like you're gonna get annoyed occasionally when you really want something. But I figured out if I need to Google something, I'll just open a new tab and just go to google.com instead of, trying to use the search bar. So it's just one extra step if I need Google. But
Mhm.
9 times out of 10, like Perplexity is giving me everything. It's answering it in the most straightforward fashion, and it's giving me the links to if I want to link out and go farther, it's giving me those links. But it's pulling from like the top 10 resources, and giving you the information from those resources
Mhm.
and laying it right there in front of you in a summarized fashion to where I go, oh, I want to learn more, I can click here. And it's usually underneath it, it's got like the next 4 or 5 questions that you are probably thinking about asking it next, already ready and prompted, ready to go. Just click a button and it'll pull up that segment.
Right.
It's
Very
it's
cool.
pretty awesome. I love Perplexity.
Okay. We'll have to take another look. So here's probably a question that's maybe the most searched on the internet. I'm going to elaborate on it a little bit. I don't know if you're monetizing with AI at all, and from what I've seen, and you kind of touched base on this a little bit earlier, saying like there's a handful of decent stuff out there. A lot of the stuff that we see as far as like people saying make money with AI, you make $10,000 a month doing blah blah blah, almost nothing. They're asking, how can I make money with AI? And I'm like, that's a good question, because most of the people that I see making the money with, is those selling these products, if you will, of how to make money with AI. So again, I don't know if you're monetizing it, and whatnot, but that's probably one of the most uh, sought out, searched questions regarding, because hey, it does everything, right? Well, okay, how do we, one capitalist to another, how do we make money on it with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying, look, you can't use AI to make $10,000 a month or $20,000 a month. I mean, I'm sure there are people that are using it in their businesses to build revenue to those level. I will never be that person that's out there selling a course saying like this is how you use AI to make money, but I will show you all the latest tools and techniques and things that I'm learning on how to help you increase your productivity, which in turn should give you more freedom and more time, which time to me is more valuable than money, but all those things correlate with each other.
Mhm.
Uh, and that's my ultimate goal. If I'm producing a course, is like it's not necessarily the monetary value that I get out of it, or that it's teaching you how to make more money. It's just teaching you the things that I'm learning. I'm paying thousands of dollars for courses to learn specialized niche skills. Like I paid like $800 for Curious Refuge's course on video creation, to learn how to like make cinematics type videos using AI. One, because I had a client that came to me and wanted that use case. So I was like, well, I need to figure out how to learn it, or I got to go pay somebody else to do it. I like to learn. It seemed like a good school. I researched a few of them, jumped in. It's a great community, like fantastic, and to the point where I'll probably end up I will be hiring some of them because I'm getting more requests for the same types of videos, and I don't want to produce all of them. I'd much rather just hire them out because I can just be the middle guy
Mhm.
that has the contact. Um, so like those things are learning how to create um, endless amounts of content in your style and your voice. I think I paid like $300 to one really good course creator. His name's Ollie. He runs a newsletter that's amazing called AI Solopreneur. It's a great newsletter. It's one of my favorite newsletters. Um, what's another one that I bought? I mean, there's been several that I've spent hundreds of dollars on that were absolute crap. Um, Prompt packs, especially things of that nature. But my goal is if I'm going to monetize what I'm doing, I think I'm going to put it into like a premium for my newsletter, to
Mhm.
where every single week I'll just release a new educational video. And if you're subscribed on the premium side of my newsletter, then you have access to that community and that course. And that's just the way I'll do it. Versus like trying to sell people how to make thousands of dollars on using this course, this AI automation agencies and things of that nature. Like you can go make a lot of money selling services to businesses that don't have any understanding of what ChatGPT is or AI, but they feel like they need to know something about it. So it is a really good time to capitalize on that. Um, because what I've found after surveying a lot of people is that there's still a large portion of the population that aren't using these tools,
Mhm.
uh, and never have used them. Even business owners. I mean, I remember one of the first times I ever spoke in front of a room full of business owners. I asked everybody in the room to raise their hand if they've been using ChatGPT, and I think like only 10 out of the 50 people that were in the room raised their hand. I was like, okay, and this is like it wasn't brand new. I think we are probably 8 or 9 months in at that point.
Hmm. And it's wild because, and we were talking about this before with like open interpreter, right? How you really don't have to be technical to use it. It actually is taking away a lot of that need. All right.
Right.
Like OpenAI is the middle interface that handles all the back end stuff, and you speak natural or type natural language to it, and it's like you couldn't make it any easier. So my only thought is like, again, they're just intimidated, lack of knowledge, or just routine driven, right? But it is the future, and no doubt about it, it's going to be
Mm,
more and more people are going to adopt it. You just like technology can't be stopped, right? So it's either adopt or die, kind of.
My simple sell is this, especially when I'm talking to businesses about hiring me for like a boot camp to go and train their employees on how to use ChatGPT and other tools that they could be using in their business. Is that just a study has shown, and this was I think by Pew Research, that just access to ChatGPT alone, just access to it, giving your employees access to it has the ability to increase productivity by a minimum of 14% just by giving them access to it, right? All right, so now let's think about that, what that means in real life, day to day. 14%. You spread that over 52 weeks. That's almost 7.5 weeks of time earned back uh, for each employee. Now, across an organization, let's say that organization has thousands of employees, how much productivity of an increase, how much time are you saving, and how much more money are you making?
Sure.
And that's just having access.
Hmm.
Now imagine if you understand how to use it, and everyone in your company understands the best way to prompt it and use it for their roles and their responsibilities in the business to speed up their productivity so they can focus on more creative tasks.
I agree. I mean, like I've been saying, there's two ways that you could reject this until it's kind of too late and you're forced to, or you can try to get ahead of the curve and position yourself better. You know, especially if you have one of those jobs that may be in jeopardy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not the best time necessarily to be like a digital creator for, you know, with tools like Midjourney and Dolly 3 that somebody can create them very quickly and whatnot. But you know,
Look, and there's always gonna be a want for human made art and human made music and like there's always gonna be like I mean look at vinyls, right? I mean who'd have thought that you could still go walk into a store and buy a vinyl record today,
sure. Yeah.
right? I mean there's always gonna be uh some kind of want and need for like that authenticness that is human.
Mhm.
Uh it's just that you know businesses don't tend to think on authentic human scale. So I don't if I need a logo, I don't give a shit if it's Jafar in India or if it's AI that's creating it or if it's a $10,000 an hour graphic designer. Now you're going to get different results 100% everywhere which way you go. But in time, things are only switching to where it's like, well, if I just need it now, this will do. For it cost me nothing. I literally created it in 2 seconds. I had 10 different designs to choose from. I
Mhm.
mean, somebody did that on my Facebook feed the other day. They're like, I'll give somebody a high five if they can create me a business logo. And like, there's like five people like pitching him uh on like how much it'll cost him.
Yeah.
So I literally just like told me what he wanted. I literally took exactly what he wanted, and I
Paste it
went over
in.
to ChatGPT and I said, "Hey, I have a client that
Uh,
wants a logo. Here's his requirements. Can you create a design for me?" And
sure.
I looked just like I don't like that one. I made like five of them, and I sent it over to him. It took me all of like 2 minutes, and he came back like a week later, and he goes, "By the way, this was the winner." And I was like, "Well, it
Sure.
took me like 2 minutes. I just took your requirements over to ChatGPT."
Perfect. It's wild. My mentor, so you know, he says sometimes, you know, if it's too easy, some people that's why they don't do it. It's easy not to do, right? So it's credibility to that.
I
Um,
told Jim Rome,
yes, you got it. He's solid. So yeah, we're just wrapping up. We got a couple more quick questions. I think you kind of mentioned this earlier. We'll dig up the resources when you get a chance. But as far as like staying up to date with the latest developments and advancements, like what resources you'd recommend? Any on the top of your head? I know you mentioned a couple of them, but if not, we can go ahead and put it in the chat later on.
yeah, I mean, so the YouTube guys that I mentioned are definitely a good resource. On Twitter, I mean, there's probably 100 of them or so. If you just go find me on Twitter, the Mr. Sippy on Twitter, and go to find who I'm following, and probably 90% of those are all AI people that you should probably follow too if you want to stay up to date on Twitter sphere. I found that's where usually a lot of the uh, latest developments when it comes to applications and announcements usually come from. Now, you're not going to get, obviously, not going to get like the most amount of reporting behind it, but that's usually where things happen first before they become news stories. So I get a lot of information from there, and I share there. Obviously, my newsletter. I read a lot of newsletters. I'm on Medium. I'm on all kinds of different platforms. I'm consistently sharing every single day, Monday through Friday. I would honestly consider it, and maybe I'm a little biased, but the most comprehensive AI newsletter you'll find, because I share a prompt every day. I share a tweet every day that I find interesting. I share 5 to 6 tools every day. I share a research paper every day. I share, 4 to 5 trending news stories, and then I break down 4 to 5 of the what I find the most interesting news stories of the day, or occasionally I'll throw something in there, personal as well. Um, oh, and there's a tutorial and a video of the day. So I'll go find a tutorial on YouTube that I thought was interesting, that people would find interesting and useful, and I'll share it. And I'll find a video. A lot of times it's these guys that I'm telling you about. It's like it's a lot, mostly cycling back and forth between like 5 or 6 people that are doing a really good job on YouTube, and taking the time to do that. But yeah, ideations.com is my website. You can find all of that. It's completely for free. Don't charge a dime. There is an option to subscribe to premium. You don't get anything extra. It's just a way to support me. I think it's like $5 a month or $25 a year. So if you're feeling friendly, that's the way my software alone, to make that thing cost like $100 a month. So
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll post a link to that as well. At the bottom there. Anything else that, like, if someone needs to get a hold of you, any other services, any things you got coming up or in the near future?
yeah, so I mean, if you've got uh 30 or more employees that you want to train um on AI or ChatGPT and other systems, and figure out how you can integrate some platforms and find some vendors that make sense for your business. I do 2-day boot camps along with a good friend of mine named Brad Costanza. It's a minimum, it's not a small buy-in, it's a minimum of 30 grand. Then it's 1,500 a seat. We mostly have been doing hospitality space, but we'll do them pretty much for anybody. These are for big companies. Like the last one we did had over 1,000 employees. They brought in 50 of their management staff. Um, and then we spent 2 days training them. I mean, other than that, I mean, I'm launching a stealth company right now. I have a company on the side with another partner that I'm doing some stuff with. So I'm not really too focused on taking on clients or anything. Unless you're in the pharmaceutical space and you need marketing and advertising, because that's what I'm doing on that side, with that stealth business. So,
Okay. The
boot
best,
camp and that's pretty, and the newsletter. That those are the 3 things that I'm really honed in on right now.
all right, and the best way for them to get a hold of you? Email, phone,
Oh,
website?
shoot me an email at brent@ideations.com. That's AIDEATIONS. So
Awesome.
ideations.
I love it, man. Well, there was a bunch of questions we didn't get to. I know we got to wrap up. We'll definitely do this in the future, man. I feel like we could probably talk for a full day.
If you haven't noticed, I don't get to talk to too many people down here in Alabama when it comes to AI. So
No, I love it,
whenever
man.
I get the chance to talk to people, and I feel like everybody's on the same wavelength, it's always a good conversation.
It is, man. Like I said, I left corporate world and this revived my tech nerd aspects. So I love it, my man.